Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey friends, it's Jory Rose. Thank you so much for tuning into my podcast today. And I was just curious, have you had a chance to visit joryrose.com for the amazing upcoming retreats I have this fall? Don't miss out, spots are limited. I can't wait to journey forward with you.
Hi, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I am so looking forward to my conversation today with Brianna Bernard. Brianna, hi, welcome.
Hi, Jory. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. So we were just chatting before hitting record that we've been connected on Facebook for quite some time. And the beauty of Facebook is I don't even know how we got connected, but I've been so inspired watching your posts and seeing about your journey. So can you tell our listeners about yourself and about the work that you do and what has your journey forward looked like?
Yeah, I would love to. So my journey started really back in 2014. First in 2012, I suppose, I became a mom. And it was something that I knew I always wanted to do. And I had a little boy in October of 2012. And throughout my pregnancy, I gained 70 pounds.
Wow.
It was quite the endeavor. I literally ate for two people for 9 months, and that was the end result. However, looking back, I really wasn't concerned. And ironically, neither were any of the medical professionals who were monitoring my pregnancy. Okay. I think I kind of just assumed, it'll come off after I have the baby, and this is baby weight. And once I start nursing and getting back into my normal routine, the weight's just going to fall off. No big deal. But it was not that at all. 1 year after Ty was born, I was still carrying that extra weight. So when I got pregnant, I was about 170 pounds, which was already probably up 20 from where I was when I first met my husband. And then I, from there, gained 70. So I was about 245 the week that Ty was born. And I stayed there. Obviously, Ty didn't weigh 70 pounds. He was about 8 pounds. So I really didn't
It's amazing
lose
how
much.
that works.
I really didn't lose much once he was born. So none of my habits were good. Obviously, I developed a lot of really poor habits nutritionally and physically from not moving to, from being really sick during my pregnancy. I think I used that as a cop-out to an extent. Oh, I'm so sick, I can't possibly. But I really was super sick. And so at that point, I was, not exercising, not making healthy choices, and just doing the fastest thing that I could do to feed myself because I was busy taking care of a little person and was a stay-at-home mom, which I totally loved, but obviously it's a little bit more dangerous nutritionally as well. If you have a bunch of unhealthy food in the house, you or someone you love is going to eat it. And I did. So from there, after Ty had just turned 1, and I'm still carrying around all this extra weight. And while this whole year is happening, I realized within the first week that my marriage was not going to work.
Oh, wow. How long had you been married prior to having Ty?
We had been married since 2010. And so 2 years before we had Ty. And the week Ty was born, I knew that this wasn't going to work.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a rough
What
week.
A range of emotions, right? From the bliss of, this newborn baby and the range of emotions we get naturally postpartum to then realize in our relational lives that there's going to be a big shift needing to happen.
Yes. And not only did I have just the normal hormonal shifts that are happening after having a baby, but I had postpartum anxiety. And I don't think I necessarily had postpartum depression, but I definitely had the anxiety piece, and actually went and lived with my parents even for a few weeks after Ty was born because my husband went back to work and I knew I needed that extra help and sleep.
Yeah, having that support.
Yeah. So I did what I had to do to take care of myself and take care of Ty. And so it was really challenging. I was super excited to have this new baby, but like you said, also feeling all of these emotions due to pregnancy hormones and knowing that my marriage isn't working and this isn't going to end well. So from there, I went to the
Once you had that realization, what did you do with that? And, there's so many aspects of your journey that I want to touch on. And so again, thank you for coming on today. But I know as a therapist, I have the majority of my client base is women. And this is such a huge question to sit with. And I got divorced about 5.5 years ago, and I was married to my high school sweetheart. And I had never been with anybody else. I mean, it was, since I was 13 years old. And it took me about 5 years to really reconcile that decision, to really sit with, I don't think that I want to have this relationship the rest of my life. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to feel that or to acknowledge the thought. And then it's a whole nother step to be able to take action on that.
Oh, yes. And it took me, I didn't actually get divorced until Ty was 3.5.
Okay.
So I had a similar story to yours in that, I had all these feelings, but I felt very stuck in my life, to be honest. I not only had a newborn baby, but I was 100 pounds overweight and I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. I was a stay-at-home parent. I had an education, but I knew that I wanted to be home and I didn't want to let go of that. And I knew that that was something I was going to have to give up. And it took a long time for me to be comfortable with that alone, much less all the other pieces of what am I going to do for work? How am I going to support us?
And that's a really logistical reason that keep women stuck.
Oh, yeah.
And, and it's interesting too, because the rate of divorce, I think, is like 67% driven by women. Like it's usually the women who are more unhappy in their marriages, and yet they're the ones driving the divorce. But I think there's even more who are unhappy but not able to really, in a variety of ways or financially, be able to make that step. So it's a hugely courageous step to make, especially in a position, like you said, of being a stay-at-home mom, educated, but had no career to really land on.
Yeah, I was very, very terrified of taking any steps, and thankfully went to therapy and have a wonderful therapist who was there with me, walking me through all of those stages. And I eventually got to a place, but it took years to get there and to figure out all the logistics and actually make it happen.
Yeah. It's not an easy step. I give you a lot of courage, sister.
I know it's crazy. I look back at it, and at the moment it was definitely the hardest time of my life. And I think it's so powerful to talk about. I think that so many people feel that, but I think that nobody tells their story. And that's why I think that your podcast is just such a great opportunity to share the real feelings and experiences that we go through, because I know that reaching out to other women that had been through divorces, that had kids, was something that I did on my own. And man, was that empowering to talk to other people who had done it and not only been through it, but they survived and thrived and lived to tell about it.
Yes. And that's the key, is because we need to know who to turn to. And yet many women don't tell the real story either.
Right. It's an easy thing to sugarcoat and, pull the curtain over. But I think that the more vulnerable we can all be and share our stories, the more people we help. And that's why we're here, is to help each other and make people's lives a little bit better. And
to let them know, like you said, that you're going to get through it. Like it might be really shitty for a period of time. And on the other side of that is your opportunity.
Yes.
Like I had this realization that I had the known and the unknown. And I had been raised to believe that the unknown was really scary. and had fear and anxiety kind of handed to me. And so I really believed that. And that kept me stuck. Even though I was happy, I wasn't really fulfilled. And I knew I needed more depth and I needed, more consciousness in my life and in my partnership. And I had this mental shift one day where I recognized that it was in the unknown that my happiness lied, because in the known, I had tried all the avenues, the therapy, all the resources I needed to try to, and it wasn't really about fixing it. It was about growing in the right direction together, right? And when I realized that I could choose to decide whether the unknown was scary, or I could choose to believe the unknown was where my opportunity was. And when I decided, no, the unknown is actually the only place where my opportunity to be truly myself and authentically happy and fulfilled resided, it was like all of a sudden I became really excited about the unknown, and it no longer had that same mental image of this big black abyss.
Absolutely. Well, and I think sometimes it takes us becoming so uncomfortable in our current situations that you're willing to risk everything because you might find happiness on the other side. And at some point,
huge risk.
You can only plan so much. There is only so much you can figure out. And at some point, you just have to jump and have faith that it is going to be figured out, because your track record is solid. So far in life, you've been thrown all of these situations and you figured out all of them. It's like that book, Everything is Figure-outable.
Yes, Marie Forleo. I love that. I once saw her speak in person. It was so inspiring because it is. If you believe it, it is figure-outable. I like to say the quote, you have 100% success rate of getting through every single thing you didn't think you could do.
Yes.
You've done it.
It's
the
so
fact that
true.
you're here is proof that maybe didn't come out the way you thought it was going to be, or maybe your inner critic is still saying it could have been better, should have been better, whatever it is, but you still got through it. So once you had that realization and took you the 3.5 years to get divorced, what was in the middle of that process? How did you end up? Because I know so much of your journey has been that weight loss. So tell us more about what happened once you accepted what your path, how it had to shift.
So my motivation came from a random grocery store trip. I was standing in the checkout line with my little boy and picked up People Magazine's annual copy of How They Lost 100 Pounds.
Yes. I always look at that.
I know, isn't it? It's so cool. I've looked at it forever just because it's so inspiring. And I opened it up and there was a woman from Minneapolis, which is where I'm from, and her story was featured, and she lost 130 pounds in a year.
Wow.
And I realized that she went to a personal trainer that was probably 30, 40 minutes from where I lived. And so I went home, looked her up, and looked up this gym and thought to myself, I see so much of me in her. And I remember sitting on my couch crying, watching videos and reading her story and thinking, if this gym and this trainer could help this woman and change her life, then maybe they could help me too. Yeah. And so I made the call and I hired this same trainer that she hired, went to the same gym and trained alongside this woman. And I just knew in my heart that if this was going to work, that this was the place I needed to be. Because I tried everything. I tried all the diets. I did Atkins. I did keto. I did Whole30. I did low fat. I did everything.
Did any of that work? Did you have success in any of those different nutritional programs?
I did not. And the reason that they did not work for me was because they were not sustainable for my lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not that anything is wrong with the diets. You could literally put them all on a dartboard and blindfold yourself and whip a dart. And if you could follow that diet to a T, I 1000% believe that you would be successful at losing weight. But the problem with diets is that they're not sustainable and they don't work for our lifestyles long term. You can do it for a while. You can do Whole30 for 30 days, but what happens after that?
Right, you're going to want to go back and get a pizza.
Right. You're like, oh, I did it. No, you have to keep doing that forever. So I soon learned that it wasn't going to work for me to continue to do these same things over and over and continue to fail. I needed to do something different. So I started training 2 or 3 days a week at this gym, and I completely upheld my diet, started logging my food in my Fitness Pal, eating lean proteins, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, and cut the rest out, and started drinking 100 ounces of water every day. And my goal for that year was not to lose weight, because every single year I went into the new year with a resolution to lose weight.
Yeah.
And every single year.
Well, in the United States have that resolution to some extent.
And every year I failed. And so I told myself, this isn't working. What are we going to do this year instead? And my goal for the year was self-care. I decided that 2014 was going to be the year of self-care. And that meant taking care of my body by eating healthy foods, exercising, going to sleep early, and doing all the things that you need to do to take the best care of yourself possible. And
that's to put it into action and not just be conceptual about it, huh?
Right. And actually do it. And I needed that accountability. It wasn't that I was incapable of doing it. I just needed an accountability, whether that was to log my food and show my trainer or show up for an appointment at the gym. I just needed to be held accountable to do it, because I wanted the change so bad. And I knew that if I wanted to be mentally strong to leave my marriage, I needed to be physically in a good state as well. And the more physically strong I became, the more mentally strong I became.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole mind-body connection right there.
It is. And the first...
Let me ask you a quick question, just for those people out there listening who are like, oh, I really need to make that shift in my life. Prior to, you said even when you got married, was fitness or nutrition or working out or training something you had ever had a baseline of, or was this really something new in your life?
So in high school and growing up, I was always fit. I wasn't ever overweight as a child or as an adult up to that point. I was a figure skater. I ran track when I was younger. And then when I went to college, I still was a very average sized person. I was probably between 145 and 150 pounds, wore a size 8, and didn't exercise really, but I didn't have a car, so I rode my bike and walked everywhere. So that kept me from gaining. At least I was staying the same. But after I met my husband, I call it like the happy weight. Yeah, like you're dating, you're in love, you're going on dates, and eating out a lot. You're drinking.
You're not trying to look your best for a new date on Friday.
Yes, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy. I just want to eat all the things. And so I put on that weight super quickly. And so really never had a weight problem in my life prior to that. But and even when I was like 170, I really didn't look in the mirror and go, oh man, I really need to lose weight. I thought I looked good. I felt good.
Yeah.
I was probably a size 10 or a 12. I was just an average size woman, in my opinion, at that time.
Yeah. And so you started the training, and then what did you start noticing?
So 1 month in to training, I had lost 12 pounds in the first month. And I thought, okay, well, this is promising. This has never happened before. And so I knew I was onto something. I was on the right track. 3 months in, I had lost 30 pounds.
Wow. That's a pretty quick weight loss too.
And I thought, I think this is going to happen. We're going to do this. And so I still didn't have like an end goal in sight. I thought, I'm just going to keep doing this and we're just going to see what happens. I never had a goal to lose 30 pounds, 50 pounds, definitely not 100 pounds.
Right.
And my goal was just self-care. I'm going to go to the gym. It was plan for the week, book my gym appointments, prep my food, and live in the day. Because sometimes it was taking it hour by hour. I want to eat pizza just for the next hour. I'm going to eat healthy though. Just for the next hour. I just have to get through today. And so it's looking back, 3 months, 30 pounds. By the time I got to 6 months, I'd lost 50 pounds.
Wow, that is amazing, Brianna.
Thank you. I was super consistently losing 2 pounds per week was what I was finding, which was, a huge calorie deficit and moving. I really wasn't doing anything other than my 2 personal training or 3 personal training at the most workouts per week. The other days I wasn't even
of weight training and cardio as well.
It was. Yeah, I was doing a ton of weightlifting, but in a way that was implementing cardio, because I'm a person who hates treadmills, who hates ellipticals. If I'm running down the street, you should run too, because something is definitely chasing me. I would never voluntarily run. So
I always like to say, like, I'd have that bumper sticker on the back of my car that says 0.0.
Yes.
You know, the people like who have the marathon stickers, and I'm like, nope, I'm at the 0.0. I don't run. I know how, but I'm not going to do it. Definitely
it's not enjoyable. Yeah, it's not super fun for me. So I had to find things that I enjoyed. And so the weight training was mixed with plyometric movements. I learned that I loved boxing, and my trainers would hold pads for me, and I got to hit things, which I loved. And it was such a great energy and stress.
Great outlet. Yeah.
Yes. Outlet and anxiety. It felt so good to hit something, and just such a positive way to channel that negative energy. And I learned that I love doing things like battle ropes and burpees and med ball slams. And so we incorporated all of those things into my weightlifting hour so that it never felt like, oh, now I have to go on the treadmill for 30 minutes. It was all inclusive. So I'm losing this weight, but I'm not even going on a walk on the other days of the week. And, I keep losing. And I decide, by the time I get to about 75 pounds down, that I think I want to become a personal trainer. And I decide that this is going to be my out for getting back into the workforce, because I have a bachelor's degree in business. I've worked in corporate America. I can easily go back to that, but I want to do something that I'm passionate about. And so I get certified and become a trainer. And the gym that I lost all of my weight at hires me as a trainer, and I start training clients, and I become a cycling instructor without ever taking a cycling class in my life, mind you. The gym owner asks if I want to teach cycling, and I say yes, and I've never taken a cycling class before. So I had to figure it out. Everything is figure outable, right?
Yes.
And so I start cycling, and between the time I started cycling and that year-end mark, I lost the rest of my weight and lost 25 more pounds.
Amazing.
And so then I was really hitting the gym hard, because my body was changing so much at that point. And I was training, between 5 and 6 days a week. And it really gave me not only the physical push that I needed to channel all of the stress and anxiety and worriedness and, all the fear that I had surrounding this big decision that I'm trying to put into action.
Yeah.
But, it was so good in so many ways. It changed everything in my life, from the way that I feel about myself to the way that my relationship with food and exercise, and the way that I parent my child, and the way that I show up for the people in my life.
I love that you commented on that, because I was going to ask, the weight is just one part of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's often even I'm going to say this very compassionately, because I've also had weight issues, and from my highest to my lowest, I lost 70 pounds.
Wow.
But my lowest weight, I was way too thin, and that was at my wedding. Like my highest, and I'm not even 5'2". My highest weight, I was 181, and at my lowest, I was 109. And 109 was not attainable and not sustainable for much more than just my wedding day.
Yes.
I averaged back up to like about 115, but I had never been below 150 as a teenager. So that was really low for me. And over the years and having kids and getting divorced, I was low again. And now I'm really happy. I just got engaged. And so my weight's a little bit higher than it's been in a long time. But the weight is just one piece of it.
It's so true. And as much
it's our mindset, it's our overall health. And I still get stuck in, feeling like I'm still, quote, the fat girl. And I still get caught up in not feeling good in my own skin and struggle with what is the right balance of exercise and food. And I lost the majority of my weight with Weight Watchers because I didn't want to cut out any major food group. I just basically cut a lot of calories, but still ate a variety of foods, and that worked for my body. But I find, in my journey and some of the women that I talk to, mostly women who, really are on this kind of trajectory with their health and their weight, the weight represents one piece of it. But so much of it I find is about what we learn about ourselves in the process.
It's so true. And when you look at my before and after pictures, the physical change that happened to me is the most obvious. But what happened on the inside is by far more profound.
Yeah.
And it has impacted everything. And after I lost that weight, I became a different person. And I believe that I can do anything. If I can lose 100 pounds, there is nothing that I can't do.
Yeah.
And that gave me...
And it's about believing in yourself. And I think a huge piece of that is, like you said, just taking it hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute.
It's so true. And I think we sometimes look at that big picture and it's not realistic to say, my goal is lose 100 pounds. No one who has that goal makes it very far. If I would have woke up every day and been like, 97 pounds to go, that would not have been inspiring. I would have given up.
Oh yeah, completely. I remember the same thing because when I first joined Weight Watchers, I had lost some of the weight on my own, and they had determined that my goal weight for my height and my weight, the weight range for that was like 108 or something up to 131. And I remember, thinking, okay, all I have to do is get to 130 to get into that weight range. But I remember thinking, starting off at 155, if I'm going to try to get to 130, that felt so daunting to me.
Yes.
And I just thought all I have to do is lose 1 pound. And if I just consistently focus on just 1 pound, then I could get there. Because if I was told I've got to weigh 130 or below, I was never, ever, ever going to do it. But I could do 1 pound.
Totally. And that was such a huge marker for me each week. I knew that if I want to lose 2 pounds per week, that means I need to cut 1,000 calories from my day because there's 3,500 calories in a pound. So as I'm logging all my food in my Fitness Pal, at the end of every day, you can click this little button that says diary complete. And then this screen pops up if your weight is in there. And it says, if every day were similar to today, in 5 weeks, you will weigh X. And that became my race. I thought, and it's 10 pounds less. It's 5 weeks away. So 2 pounds a week, I'm going to lose 10 pounds if I can stick on this trajectory. Yeah. And that was my race. And I was like, okay, that means I need to hit 2 pounds in the next 7 days. And it's so powerful to break that down because before you know it, 2 pounds becomes 20 pounds and 20 pounds became 50 pounds. And pretty soon you're down 70. And it's so much more realistic to break that big goal into those little mini goals and celebrate them along the way.
How did you manage cravings? Did you have days where you just were like, give me the pizza, give me the cookie? Like, did you allow yourself those cheat days? Because I feel like if we don't allow some degree of that balance, then we just binge, or a lot of people, right? Like if I don't have a little bit of the chocolate, I'm going to eat the whole bag. It's like, what did you do to balance? Because again, that's really mindset too. It's not just the food. That's what I love, the parallel, because it's not just about the food.
It's so true. So in the beginning of my weight loss journey, I would allow myself to go out and have one meal didn't turn into a whole day. That was my deal with myself, that
Yep.
it's okay to eat something. If you feel like you want to splurge on anything, it's okay to have one meal, but then I need to get right back on track the next time I eat. Not the next day, not Monday, not the first of the month. It has to be the next meal, because I can't keep falling off of this wagon and then trying to get back on. And I don't want to derail all the progress that I've made. So for a while, I had a weekly meal that I would enjoy, and I usually went out to eat because I didn't want to keep it in my house. I knew if there's unhealthy food here, it is going to be gone. So I need to go out and then go home to a healthy fridge and pantry and freezer. So I did eat one meal for a while. And then as time passed, the more consistent I was with my healthy eating, the less I craved those unhealthy things. It really is true that if you don't eat a ton of sugar, you don't crave sugar. And my body really detoxed, and I didn't feel the need to do that on a regular basis. So it became something that I just did when I felt like it, or I just did when I didn't have another choice. Maybe I'm at a party or at a scenario where I don't get to pick my meal and I'm forced to eat pizza. Then I'm going to have pizza and it's going to be fine. I can eat one piece. And I had to learn that, deprivation for me is not the answer either. If I want to eat something, I just need to do it. I'm not going to eat a health cookie. I'm going to go eat the best damn cookie that I can find. And then I'm going to be done.
And then actually what I would add to that, like what I, talk with my clients with the mindfulness piece, is then savor each damn bite.
Yes.
If you're going to do it, savor it, enjoy it, taste it. Don't eat it so quickly. Like, allow it to be something you can really be in the moment with. And then let it go. True. Let the judgment go, right? It's not about, oh my God, I can't believe I ate the cookie and I can't believe I got off program. It's like, no, I'm going to enjoy that cookie as long as I can taste that little chocolate morsel.
Absolutely. And remember that you are the boss of your food and exercise. Nobody can force pizza down your throat. Nobody can tell you that you can't move your body. You own those decisions. So if I'm going to choose to eat ice cream, then I need to be able to live with that too and not beat myself up for it, and be mindful that this is not the last supper. Yes. If I eat ice cream today, I can eat one scoop and then be done. I don't need to eat a gallon of ice cream, or I legit would eat a half gallon of ice cream in one sitting, because I would deprive myself on a diet. And then when I finally got my hands on it, I'd go nuts. Yeah. So just remembering too that, like, this is not the last supper. I will get to eat ice cream again. And so I don't need to go crazy. You will eat again. It's not the last time.
I once said too, because we're so conditioned to like reward ourselves. Like, I made it through my day. Let me have a glass of wine. Or I did really good, at this challenge. Let me like have that chocolate or cookie. And I once read somewhere, don't reward yourself with food. You're not a dog.
It's so true. And it's about finding joy in other things and rewarding yourself in positive, healthy ways with new habits. Because if you are finding all of your joy from food, you need to take a deep look at what else is going on in your life. Because let me tell you, I have not been able to emotionally eat away any feeling in my life, no matter how delicious the food was. And a therapist I saw once told me this great analogy that's always stuck with me. She said, Brianna, your feelings are like clouds. They come and they might stay a while, but they always pass. Always. It has never, ever been cloudy forever. They always pass and the sun comes back out. And in order for the sun to come back out, you don't need to do anything. You can just sit with it. You can be uncomfortable. Learn how to feel comfortable in those uncomfortable moments and let it pass. Right there.
That is exactly what I teach, because it's so true.
It is.
And the more that we sit there and lament and say, oh my God, it's so cloudy. Why me? Why now? Why does this always happen? And we take it really personally too, right? Yes. And yet we forget that it's the law of nature. It's going to continue.
It's so true. And the more I practiced feeling uncomfortable and sitting with it, the easier it got.
Yep.
And every time that I, in the past, had felt lonely, I'd eat ice cream. If I felt sad, I'd eat a cookie. If I felt tired, I'd order pizza and eat the whole thing. And over time, I started practicing eating something extremely healthy when I felt those feelings. I thought, this is just a habit that I have.
Yeah.
This is not who I am. This is a habit. And so I can change it. And so next time I feel sad, instead of eating a pint of ice cream, I'm going to eat chicken and asparagus. And believe it or not, the feelings passed, and it didn't matter whether I had ice cream or chicken. It went away. And it was so powerful for me because I realized that I didn't have to self-sabotage myself anymore. And I was the boss, and I could choose to eat whatever I want. And it has nothing to do with the emotions. And that is a powerful thing.
It's huge. So you reach this 100-pound weight loss goal, and then what happened?
So I lose the weight and I become a trainer. I start working. The gym hires me, and I tell my husband that I'm leaving. I want a divorce. And like I said, I tried to plan as much as I could. I knew I was going to have a job at least. I had to try to figure out, where am I going to live? How am I going to still support my little boy and I? And we thankfully had a pretty easy process. We never were fighters.
Yeah.
We just grew apart. And so it was...
I can relate to that.
It was uncomfortable because we lived in our house together throughout the entire divorce. So for 6 months that it took us to get divorced and go to, mediation and go to, figure out custody arrangements and finances, we were living under the same roof. And I was in the guest room, and it was very uncomfortable, but we lived through it. And then went our separate ways, sold our house and moved out. And it has been the best decision that I have ever made in my entire life. Because I have yet to meet someone who actually says getting divorced was a bad choice. Right?
I mean,
I don't know anybody.
That's not to say that they haven't come with challenges, and it has not been often a very hard road to get there. But knowing that hard road is just like those clouds, it's not permanent, right?
Exactly.
That hard moment, that challenge, that initial, loneliness or anger or sadness or fear or anxiety is just going to pass. You just got to get through it. I truly have yet to hear someone say, I really never should have done that. And
it's so true.
I'm not here promoting divorce. Don't get me wrong, but I am promoting happiness.
Amen. And that is the biggest thing. And if that's
the path you need to be happy, then you know what? Your kids are going to get a better role model for you demonstrating that authenticity and embracing your fears and your courage to live a different path than, we make these decisions when we're so young.
It's so true.
Know ourselves, and we don't know what we need in relationship, and we don't always have the role models or the previous generation to show us. And times have evolved anyway between men and women. So, yeah, I'm promoting happiness and authenticity, and whatever which path takes you there.
It's so true. And even I remember my parents saying, obviously they were not upset that I was getting divorced. They were 1,000,000% supportive, but they were worried, of course. This is my child, and I want my child to be okay. And is everything logistically going to be okay? And at the end of the day, my mom has always said, the most important thing to me is that my kids are happy. Yeah. I don't care if you make a lot of money. I don't care if you're successful. I don't care if you're the garbage truck driver.
Yep.
Do whatever makes you happy. And that has always stuck with me. It's so true. And it's so funny how I think a lot of us stay in marriages when we have little kids or even big kids because we feel like we're going to ruin their lives by getting a divorce. And I think that was part of the reason that I stayed for as long as I did, was because I was terrified of what that was going to mean for Ty. And it's so funny because not only has he been so resilient, but he has thrived through this entire process and been
Wow.
such a rock star. The kid has not skipped a beat. And I think a big part of that is because he was little, which makes me so grateful that we did it when he was 3. And it makes me regret not doing it sooner even, because he would have been fine at any age. But at the same time, it just goes to show, I think that the relationship that my ex-husband and I have created has also helped him thrive. And it's so funny because we went from being 2 people who were struggling to live under the same roof, and now we have this wonderful co-parenting relationship.
Oh, Brianna, that's amazing.
And I know that that's not true for everyone, but it's also a choice that I make every day.
I was just going to say, it may not always be easy, but it is possible.
It is. And it's a choice that I make in every interaction that we have. And I choose to let go of anger or sadness or any of the feelings that I may have felt. And I choose to move forward and have a positive relationship, because I want Ty to know that his parents can always be in the same room together, that we can still go out for brunch together as a family, and we can show up at his sporting events and sit next to each other and cheer. And even my in-laws show up at events, hug me, we all sit together. I get invited to family functions with my in-laws still. And it's this beautiful relationship. And I think
my ex-husband and I, we were actually in Europe together for 2 weeks this past summer.
That's amazing.
And our daughter had her bat mitzvah in Israel. And so we were in Israel for 12 days, the 4 of us. And even though I've been in a relationship for 4 years, and, that was just the way my divorce looked. It's super unique, but it was what was right for our kids. And, it was a challenge in my relationship, but it wasn't, my fiance and I are very secure in our relationship. And it didn't come without some challenges, but it was also, this is what my divorce looks like. And it can look any which way you create it.
It's so true. And, there always are going to be challenges. By no means is everything perfect, but man, do we make it work. And I let him know regularly how grateful I am for him being a great parent and just having the ability to co-parent and communicate with him so easily. It's something
awesome.
that I think it's just such a priority, because it's not about him and I. It's about our children. And if we can, you have to be able to put your feelings aside sometimes and do what's best for your kids, because that is much easier sometimes than thinking about what you want or need.
It's so true. And I was having a conversation with the woman earlier this week, and, even post-divorce, she still struggles in the relationship with her ex and communication and money. And, this idea of forgiveness came up, and it's like, it's not about forgiving his actions. The forgiveness is really freeing yourself of the burden you carry by staying angry.
Oh, it takes so much energy to be angry and to have resentment. And the day that I let go of that, I felt this unbelievable weight lift off my shoulders. And I just took a deep breath and I just let it go. And it has been so much better. Just focusing on the positive.
Yeah. What would you have told your younger self? If your current self could have told your younger self, maybe it was that week Ty was born, or what would you tell your younger self that maybe someone could find inspiring if maybe they're in a similar struggle right now? What message would you give that younger self?
I would tell myself that everything was going to be okay, and that there was nothing that I can't do. I think the believing in yourself piece is everything. If you believe you can or can't, you are right. Yeah. And so much of it is believing yourself and deciding, if there's something that you need to do or want to do, you just are one decision away. I decided that I was going to take care of myself, and I decided that I was going to eat healthy, and I decided that I was going to move my body. And I did it. I did all those things, and they were super hard. But looking back, that hard was what made it great. And the journey was the best part of it. And even through my divorce, I can look back at it and smile about that entire process and be really proud of the resilience and the bravery and the courage and the communicating and every step of the way, all of the things that had to be done in order to have that come to fruition.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
I love that was your answer. I often, when I lead my women's retreats, and I just recently did a workshop at my office where I will guide a future self meditation. And it's this really beautiful meditation that is really powerful. And I had a girlfriend guided one for me actually the day before we told my kids that my ex was moving out. And in this future self meditation, we drop into the dwelling of our future self, and we have the opportunity to ask our future self a question and hear the answer. And in my own experience, and when I get feedback from, it's usually women that I guide this with, the general question they always ask is, am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
Am I going to be okay? We just want to know we're all going to be okay. And I really think, you know what, no matter what happens, as long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. So it's about, like you said, that day-to-day, moment-to-moment choice of how am I going to interact with this thought, this emotion, this challenge, this struggle. Like, am I going to stay here and be stuck? Because we know when we're stuck, at least it's familiar. We know how to do it, but at some point it doesn't serve us anymore. So that's why that journey forward is so courageous to say, I'm worthy enough to take that step forward, having no idea where it's going to land me, but knowing it's going to be somewhere other than here, and that's going to be okay.
It's so true. And having affirmations, even something that I did in therapy to get through some stuck spots, was always to write down worst case scenario. What is the worst? What is my biggest fear around this? I'm going to live in a roach infested apartment in the hood. I'm going to have all these, all this. I'm not going to have enough money to pay rent. I'm not going to have enough money for food. I'm going to be on welfare. That's worst case scenario. And then on the other side of that note card, writing down the truth. What is realistically going to happen? What is real about that fear? Is that really going to happen? Is that guaranteed to happen? Because if it's not guaranteed to turn out like that, then what's another alternative option? Yeah. And that was so powerful to wake up every day and read those fears, and then read the truth to myself too. Yeah. And know that no, that is not going to happen. The actual thing that would happen is this, and this is the worst that it could possibly get. Is just so reassuring to know that, of course I'm going to be okay. Yeah.
So to finish off your story of standing in the grocery store and seeing that People magazine, then what happened? Loop back around to that as we've kind of come full circle.
So 5 years later, after standing in that grocery store, picking up that copy of People's How They Lost 100 Pounds, 5 years later, I was in the very same issue.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was absolutely crazy. And we pitched my story to People, and they loved it, of course, because not only did I have this weight loss story, but I was inspired by picking up that copy of their magazine. Yeah. And so I was featured in the magazine in June of 2018. And then for the launch of the magazine, I was on Good Morning America, and Robin Roberts interviewed me that morning about my weight loss journey.
So exciting.
Yeah. It's just been a crazy, crazy couple of years, from having my story featured in multiple publications and getting on the cover of Train for Her magazine, and, just doing all of this press and launching my own fitness business, and having the opportunity to work with so many other people, especially women, and helping hold them accountable for their health, because I feel like that mountain was put in front of me so that I can show other people that it is possible to be moved. And that is now what I do every day. And it doesn't feel like work because I'm so passionate about helping other women the way that people helped me.
I love that you said that. I feel the exact same way about my work, in that I don't feel like it's work because I'm just so passionate about it. And for the both of us, it's like, because we know that change is possible. You know, it exists. You can actually get yourself unstuck from what's not working in your life and have that, courageous journey forward to get you where you're needing to be. And I always will say to clients, you don't have to believe it yet, but I will hold this space of that possibility for you. So until you get your mindset wrapped around it, which I'll help you with, just know that I'm holding that space of possibility in your presence, and we're going to guide you there.
It's so true.
It's really hard to believe it if you're really stuck in that negativity bias, if you're stuck in an old, outdated story or belief in yourself, or you're stuck in just a really unhappy place in your life where you can't even figure out how to get that first step out of the mud. But having someone to say, you don't have to believe it yet, but I will believe it for you and give you this outline of what you can start doing. Well, then we got to, make huge changes in people's lives.
Yeah, then anything is possible.
Brianna, you're so inspiring. And there will obviously in our show notes be any links so people can find out more about you. And, I was looking at your website earlier and seeing those amazing before and after photos. It is a journey, and it's not going to happen overnight, and that is okay. But you just keep plugging along, believing in the process. And thank you so much for being so inspiring and giving so much back to other people through your story.
Of course. Thank you again so much for having me, Jory.
And stay warm. We were chatting before we had the call that where you live, it's really, really literally freezing. So
it's nasty out there. I'm going to stay inside and drink my coffee.
And be cozy. So stay warm. And I really loved chatting with you. Thanks so much for coming on today, Brianna.
Thank you.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.